I'm Jill Savage, joined by Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson.
Another balmy Texas day here. Wonderful Thursday, rounding into the weekend almost.
You're blue. Chris Bedford is very blue today. DC Politics editor. Do you have the blues? I don't know.
Oh, no, I feel great. It's been cloudy here all week, barely a hint of sunshine. It is perfect Scottish weather.
Well, there is some perfect things that are happening right now in the country. One of those things is immigration, you guys, because for the first time in 60 years, America's immigration population is shrinking. Of course, it's happening under Donald Trump. If we take a look at some of the numbers, we see from the Pew Research graphic, the unauthorized immigrant population from 1990 to 2023. You can see, okay, of course, it's going up, up, up. We get to, even after 9/11, the numbers don't go down, which is a bit surprising. But then we just kind of, hit a steady plateau. Now, this graph, I will tell you, stops in 2023, you guys. So we don't actually get the visual satisfaction of watching the graph just have that downturn. But Matt, how significant is this right now?
I mean, it's everything. I mean, this is at the heart of why Donald Trump was reelected president, is to stop the invasion by millions of people who are being invited by powerful people to retain power in America. So this is the tipping point. He's actually stopped the bleeding and started to reverse the trend. This is what everyone voted for, and certainly what I voted for. And so that's remarkable, right? And he's actually doing the job.
And we've seen 1.5 million people leave on their own, Chris, since January. The total immigration numbers, by the way, legal and illegal, got up to 53 million people, which is just an insane amount. And so what are we going to actually need to see done to see these numbers continue to improve?
Well, ICE has been ramping up its enforcement efforts and have finally got its money just a few weeks ago. The funds were finally released for them to get the agents they need, for them to get the beds they need, for them to get the equipment that they need. But now it's basically turning on, and they've been turning on an organization that has essentially been off for 4 straight years and kind of retraining it and retreading it to be able to do the job that needs to be done. So previously, a lot of American presidents do a lot of bluster. They do a lot of talk. They say that this is the law. And for years, the Department of State has broadcast in Central and South America that the United States is not a place for you to come. But now it's actually believable. Now it's actually being backed up by force. Now when you get offered a couple $100 to accept a flight home, you know that the alternative is not staying here. The alternative is how long it's going to take before you get arrested, because the arrests are happening. Now, there have been a lot of comparisons to the Obama-era numbers, which were bloated and inflated by the Obama administration. But those numbers, look for them to increase. If this administration is serious about it, and by all accounts they certainly seem to be, and if the American people continue to support it, and by all accounts they certainly do, then these numbers are going to continue to rise. The self-deportations are going to continue to rise. Now, it's portrayed by the Democrats as being just a bunch of families here that have roots and all these different things, but that's just not the case. Huge numbers of people are young, single men, military-age single men, who very easily could pick up and actually survive and do well and wouldn't mind getting their flight paid for on a couple $100 and not being deported, handcuffed to El Salvador. So this strategy is working. The comms effort is working. The coverage, both shrill from the left and more positive from the American right, is working. But you're going to need to see an uptick in arrests, continued uptick in deportations for these numbers to really start to have a lasting impact.
And they need to start happening in sanctuary cities, because we see Boston's mayor, Michelle Wu, she's vowing not to comply with Pam Bondi's federal immigration law. Watch.
Here is our response. Stop attacking our cities to hide your administration's failures. Yeah. Unlike the Trump administration, Boston follows the law. We mayors said this in D.C. nearly 6 months ago, and I'll say it again today. You are wrong on the law, and you are wrong on safety. And we are picking up the pieces of your failures to deliver on your promises.
Can't wait till she goes out and gets ratioed again. I feel like every time she has a video, things don't go well. But Matt, she's trying to go out there and say, oh, they're following the law out there in Boston. I don't I don't think those words mean what you think they mean.
Here's where things get interesting, right? Because she's going to double down on behalf of her constituents and the coalition of groups that run her party. And this is going to happen all over the country, I think. And we're going to see who wins because the Trump administration has made very clear, and this was what the California stuff was all about, right? The protests and everything else. They don't care where you are. And if you are a sanctuary city, they're going to come after you. And there's 1,000 ways that they could do this, by the way. So I think that is a fight that's going to unfold. We're going to see more of this, but we're also going to see some responses. And I think if these cities continue to F around, as they say, they will find out.
Well, what are we going to see, Chris? What do we have in our crystal ball future if these sanctuary cities, if they keep going through and trying to act like Michelle Wu is trying to act? What do we think is going to come down the pipeline for them?
Most that would use the Trump administration has been looking at the toolbox that was used to force states to take on a 21 plus drinking age. Remember when states raised the age where it initially was from 18 to 19, there was a fairly precipitous drop in alcohol-related driving deaths. And that's probably because high schoolers who are seniors are no longer able to buy it for their fellow high schoolers. Then they started to raise the age to 20, and there was no change. And then they wanted to raise it to 21, again, because groups like MAD had no reason to exist except to fight for raising alcohol age. And when states resisted, which a large number of them did, the federal government held up highway funding. That's the main way. Boston is a city that is filled with highways. It's the Big Dig put most of them underground, but they need that federal highway funding. Those are some of the kinds of tools that federal governments have proven they have the legal ability to use in order to get local governances to actually enforce their federal law or to cooperate on federal law. I don't know what the heck Michelle Wu is talking about with she knows the law. And the administration doesn't. I think she might find out the hard way that there are plenty of tools, in addition to ICE flooding into Boston regardless, especially now that they have the funds to be able to hold people. And there are plenty of police stations outside of Boston that are willing to actually work with them because the crimes and the illegal gangs and other things that Boston does allow in certain neighborhoods leak into these other areas that have less resources to actually be able to combat them. So they're willing to work with federal law enforcement. And those are the sorts of things you're going to start to see.
Now, not that I fully trust these numbers, but not because I don't trust what's on my screen, but because I don't trust how we count, illegal immigrants. But let's not sleep on the red states either, Chris, right? Because if number one is California, okay, everyone knows. Number 2 and 3 in terms of the amount of illegal immigrants there are Texas and Florida. And then, you go to New York. So there are large red states, namely Texas and Florida, that I think still could do a lot to push that population out, or at least make, if you're in the country, right, get more people to go to the sanctuary cities or these blue states, and then, they'll be dealt with there. I think that basically red states haven't done everything that they could do, and the Trump administration should also remember, right, that some of these states are not as tough as they ought to be.
No, the red states are never as red as blue states are blue. They're always get along, go along. It's really been surprising to see Texas's GOP actually grow a backbone and be willing to fight the Democrats as hard as they have, most recently on redistricting, because usually they treat them as a governing coalition, which is something you do not see Republicans getting when they're in Massachusetts or Republicans getting in California. That's a way that they've largely acted. Also, Republicans are starting to slowly change. One, from a party that was always afraid and cowering, like Jeff Flake in an elevator, and also to a party that was largely beholden to large corporate interests, whether that's big ag and big sugar, big railroad, the big meat, all the different places, all the different companies that say, no, I'm not paying Americans. I'm not dealing with that stuff. And you guys have to leave me alone, otherwise the economy collapses. It's the same argument you've heard from the rich since literally before the United States was founded to justify slavery or importing Chinese serfs who are not even allowed to swear allegiance to the United States by their emperor, and now with illegal immigrants. It's something they've always done, and previously Republicans were really beholden to that. I mean, You could see the corporate interests rather largely on display all over the place in Texas, all along the highways and all the major cities. And those guys have a lot of sway. So you have to be able to push back against them and have some courage. And also, Republicans in red states like to act like they live in a bubble. You hear all the time on different things with, hey, you got to be careful with your elementary school. It seems like that school in Texas is teaching children to be trans. They act like wokeism won't be there. Oh, not at our school. Well, that's actually not true. Pay attention. These battles are happening all over the country, and red states really need to step it up.
All right, things are happening in red states. We have Alligator Alcatraz that we have down there in Florida, the detention center. Kristi Noem, DHS secretary, has announced another one in another red state. It's coming soon, Nebraska's Cornhusker Clink. So our producers wanted to have some fun, and they said, what would be a good name for the Texas deportation center? You know Texas is going to get one. We just talked about all the people that are here, Matt. So come and take them. That was from Rob Eno. The Longhorn Lockdown, the Alamo After Party, or the Star Spangled Slammer is my personal favorite. Chris, what? I mean, come on. We know Texas has to be on the list. There's no way a state this size is going to be left out of this party.
Oh, no. Texas has lots of space that, a lot of folks don't actually want to live. It would seem like it's a great, beautiful expanse for a big, beautiful, expansive prison. And it's right near the border, because the idea of these camps is not to hold people there indefinitely. The idea of these camps is to have places where you can put people temporarily where they get to return home to their communities and their families, and countries which, by the way, could really benefit from working age males who are so eager to be able to be contributing members of society, who speak the language, who have the same cultural backgrounds and touchstones, who have the same folk heroes, who come from the same background, who understand the history. It seems like they could be doing a lot of good out there. So maybe just do a quick, short little stop off with the Alligators or the Cornhuskers or with the Longhorns, and then back home.